This is my interpretation of the video I Pet Goat 2 by Heliofant. Starting out, I want to say my interpretation is objective. It does not necessarily imply that I agree with the philosophies herein. Heliofant, in short, means revealer of the mysteries of the sun. Helio is Helios, and Fant is a word segment that means revealer or teacher. And that meaning will bear out in the content of the video. So let us begin. Here we have the goat that represents the power that be's interpretation or perception of us, I should say. We are their livestock. We exist in their box and their paradigm. In a sense, we are their pets. We have the figure of a man walking a dog. We are their dogs in a sense also, which they walk and control. And here we have the dilapidated looking hands of the puppeteer. On his left hand he's got a ring of money, and on his right hand a ring of blood. Rings in the ancient world represented power. They preceded the crown as a symbol of power. So you have the power of money and the power of the shedding of blood. And here we have our dunce, George W. Bush. Now I want you to take a look at the U.S. map here on your left. There are 4 pins in the map. One pin is on the Macondo well area, which is where the Deepwater Horizon blowout occurred. The other is New Orleans, that was devastated by Hurricane Katrina, and perhaps more so by the FEMA response to that disaster. Here we have Oklahoma City, the location of the Oklahoma City bombing. And we have New York, New York, the location of 9/11. And of course, I'm sure most of you know the significance of each of these pins. They represent events in which the elements of the government, certain elements, were either directly involved in perpetrating or in greatly exacerbating or using to their advantage, at best. Above the U.S. map, we have the symbol of the owl, which is the symbol of Bohemia and of dark wisdom. The powers that be operate under the cloak of secrecy and darkness, much like the owl preys upon its prey under the cover of darkness. Below the map we have several snowflakes or 6-rayed star symbols. The 6-rayed star will show up later in the video, so just remember that one. Now I'm going to move on. Okay, now here we have the clock at the top at 12 o'clock precisely, straight up. That implies time is up. If we look down on the board, that idea is also carried in this game of Hangman, in which the word evolution is portrayed. The idea being that we are on our last leg to evolve. We have one more chance. If we mess up at this point, we are the hanged man. And that carries forward into the chart above the chalkboard, which shows the path of evolution with a wall that must be overcome in order to reach the evolved state of illumination. Okay, now we see positive F equal negative F. Now the two F's might make someone say, well, that's false flag. Well, that might be true, but there's also other layers of meaning here. We have an equation in which a positive variable equals a negative variable. The idea here perhaps is that both the left and the right paradigm are ultimately the same. On the surface, they do not appear to be the same, and likewise on the surface, this equation would not seem to make sense. The F could represent fake, so positive fake equals negative fake. And of course, this presidential puppet figure is obviously fake. It will later morph into Obama, and so you have both the left and the right, but they are the same puppet being controlled by the same puppet master. So ultimately, positive fake equals negative fake. That duality is carried into the image of the brain here, which of course is intended to function as a whole, but in this case the hemispheres are split by force, or by a lightning symbol that represents force or energy. So humanity's state of mind is put into duality through some form of coercion. To the right of that is the black dragon, which would represent perhaps the powers that be. I've also played with the idea that this may represent the dragon of China. That may not seem to make much sense at this point, but just keep that in the back of your mind. Of course, we have the black and white tiles on the floor, which is Masonic in nature. Okay, and now we have on his cheek the circle and the dot that looks like what some might call a beauty mark, but that's actually the symbol of Heliofant, and I'm not sure if that's incredibly significant, but it seems like they put their symbol in their video quite a bit. He's reading his teleprompter. Okay, and here we have the figure of the girl who is holding on to the knowledge. She's holding on to the knowledge given to her, and that seems to be preserving her from becoming like those behind her, who perhaps at one time held the knowledge as well. Now let's watch and see what happens. The light dims, darkness comes upon her, but there's a spotlight upon her still. She drifts off asleep, she drops the apple. Now if you notice the white rabbit behind her, when the lights dimmed, you could clearly see the white rabbit was still illumined. That would mean at that time of darkness at which she began to drift off asleep, she was being led in her mind through a labyrinth, like Alice in Wonderland, and she forgot the knowledge, and she dropped it as she nodded off asleep. It runs into the boot of the presidential figure and splits into two hemispheres, much like the brain we saw before. The duality. Of course, the presidential figure is a figure of controlled opposition and duality. So it makes sense that the knowledge would be broken when it is let go of and runs into the obstacle of controlled opposition. Out of the two hemispheres, though, comes an anomaly, and that is vines that join the two hemispheres and create a single lotus flower. Now in ancient Egyptian symbolism, the lotus flower represents the rebirth of the sun, and that idea is also carried by the presence